Hey everybody, welcome back to the board meeting. Today we're doing another reviews and ratings episode where I review and rate all the new to me games that I've been playing in the past couple of weeks with friends, family, and even solo. Today we're going to go over 6 games and actually a little tiny expansion as well. And we're going to start with my least favorite and go to my favorite. Luckily, these couple weeks have been good for me for like newer games for myself. These are all going to get, kind of recommendations for myself for people if you're intrigued by that sort of game. So let's start on the bottom and work our way up. We're going to start with Palm Laboratory. Palm Laboratory is simply a small wallet-sized card game that you play from your hand. It is a re-implementation of a game from a few years called Palm Island, and you literally just play that game in your hand. And during the game, you're going to be going through this deck from front to back, and you're going to be basically using some of the cards to slide to use as resource, and then they go like sideways in your hand. So you're holding this deck of cards straight, and then you have a couple cards sideways, and they've got resources on the top that you're going to be using to spend to sort of upgrade some certain cards, do certain actions to get more points. And you're going to go through that deck a few different times throughout the game, and you're just spending those resources, upgrading cards along the way, and it's just like an interesting puzzle sort of game that you play in your hand. I did enjoy Palm Island. I like this one even a little bit more. It is just going to get a 6.5 rating from myself. I don't think it's an amazing game, but it's very unique and it's very interesting, and the fact that you can play it just in your hand. This is one of those games, if you're a passenger in a car, you can break this out and play it and everything, and it's a perfectly fun game. I have enjoyed playing this a few different times, and if you played Palm Island, it's very similar to that one, but I like the artwork a little bit better on this one. But I will say one thing, when you're playing this game and you're holding these cards and you're having a couple cards to the side and then you got a couple cards up on top here, and your hand starts cramping, at least mine does. And that's one thing I've had issues with this game, but it's a very unique game. So yeah, a 6.5 for Palm Laboratory. Going on to the next game. The next game is actually another wallet-sized game. This is The Walking Dead Surrounded. This is a button shy game. You know, the company that is known for making those wallet-sized games, those 18-card wallet games. And this one really intrigued me just from the start because, as far as I know, this is the first IP that Button Shy has went and got. As far as I know, I could be wrong on that, but I've got like 25 or 30 different Button Shy games in my collection, and I don't think there's an IP game in there. But anyways, it's like a spatial awareness tile laying sort of game where you have cards, and on the front side there's locations, on the back side there are people. I can't remember what they're supposed to be called, but there's people, and some of those people are zombies, some of them are actual just people. And when you're playing, you're going to put out a location card, and then you're forced to flip one of those cards and to the other side and try to put a zombie into that location that you just put in. Now, at the end of the game, you want to have more people in locations than zombies, because you're going to get points if you have more people than zombies. You're going to get negative points if you have less people than zombies. Also, a lot of these cards are going to have some kind of special abilities on them. They're going to play uniquely, and it's just sort of this fun little spatial puzzle. This one's going to get a 7 rating. I think it's a really fun, simple game. I do really like when Button Shy makes these spatial puzzles that you're trying to make these little grid that you're making. I like when Button Shy does them. Those tend to be some of my favorite games. This one is, I don't think there's a ton of replay value in this one, but I did have a good time, and I'm going to continue to bring this one to the table a few more times. There is also a scenario book, which offers a little bit more replay value, but the scenarios are pretty similar to just the regular base game. But yeah, a 7 for The Walking Dead Surrounded. The next one, we have the Fisheries of Gloucester. I might be pronouncing that wrong. I probably am pronouncing that one wrong. But this is a 2-player head-to-head game where you are going to be spending time. And your time is basically how much resources you have basically for those turns. You know, you're going to do certain actions, and these actions are going to cost your time. And you're going to basically be putting out these tiles and then moving your boats and then trying to fish these places. But you're only doing one action at a time, And it is a very small, tight board. And a lot of times you're putting out a tile thinking, oh, I'm going to move my boat over here to try to fish these certain fish over here. And the other person jumps ahead of you and jumps onto that spot that you created. And because the map is so tight in this one, I I had a pretty good time playing this one. It's going to get a 7 rating. That's a higher rating than I was expecting to give it when I saw the cover, because the cover is a little bit uninspiring to me. It looks a little bit boring. The board looks a little bit boring and everything. But the fact that you have this small grid and it is a head-to-head game where you are trying to outmaneuver your opponent on this small board. You know, there's not a lot of space in here, and you're trying to outmaneuver your opponent, spending your time wisely, and trying to basically outlast the opponent and outmaneuver them on this small, tight board. And yeah, it's a 7 rating for myself. I enjoyed it. The reason why it's not higher is kind of the same reason for The Walking Dead is only got a 7, is because that replay value. You know, after I played this game twice, I was like, yeah, you kind of just play the game over and over again, and there's not much new things that are happening. You see everything you need, everything you want to see in that first game, but it is a fun game. I did enjoy it, but I don't know how many times I'm going to want to come back to it. But if you can find this game for like $15 or so, it's a good fun experience for, you know, a 20-minute game, 20 to 30-minute game, I'd say. So yeah, 7 rating for Fisheries of Gloucester. Going to the next one. The next one is an abstract game. This is Madala Stones. Madala Stones it really looks like it's in the same family as almost Azul. But in Madala Stone, you're going to have this big giant general board that are going to have a lot of tiles on them stacked up. And then you're going to have these black pillars that you're going to be moving around in between these stacks of these tiles. And when you move the pillar on one, or in a space, you're going to take all of the stones on top of those piles around you that match that pillar's symbol. And you also do not get to take the tiles that are adjacent to another black pillar. And then once you take all of the tiles will go on one of these scoring spots. There's, I think, 5 different scoring spots that you can put them on. And you can put it on one of these empty scoring spots. You can either take these tiles, like I said, or you can score. Now, when you're scoring, you're going to take the top tile, you're going to choose a color, and then you're going to score all of that color if they're on the tops of these different piles. And all of these different scoring areas score a little bit differently. They're going to score if it's so high on your stack. They're going to score how many different colors are in that stack. They're going to score how many different tallness stacks there are in your area. And so there's a bunch of different options of how you're scoring, and it's really interesting how you're going to choose when you're going to score, what tiles you're going to be taking, and it's just a fun game. It's going to get a 7.5 rating. It's right up there. It feels like it should be in that Azul family. It's a fun abstract game that I really enjoyed. I think it's going to stick around in my collection for a bit, actually. So yes, 7.5 for Madala Stones. Going to the next one is a campaign expansion to Marvel Champions. This is the Age of Apocalypse. Now, this is the 7th campaign expansion for Marvel Champions. I've played through them all. This one has, you know, just like the other ones, it has 2 new heroes, and then it has 5 villain scenarios that you're playing through. And in this one, you've got Bishop and you've got Magic as the 2 heroes. And I think both of them are really fun fighters. And usually I would do a separate individual video for these Marvel Champion expansions, but I've gone through so many of them that all of them are starting to kind of blend together, and all the expansions seem to add one little new mechanic that they're adding to the game. And this one sort of adds these player side missions that you're going to have to send people on to try to accomplish those. And that's kind of like its own separate game in this one. This one's going to get an 8 rating. It's a little bit lower than the last couple expansions for me, only because, you know, I do like the villain scenarios in this one. I do like the heroes, but those player side missions I didn't care for. And of course, you don't have to play through the campaign if you don't want to. You can just play against the regular villains and use the regular heroes, but the campaign itself I didn't like as much because of those player side missions, because now there's a little bit too much going on for myself, where there's a lot going on in Marvel Champions. Each hero's got their special abilities. All the villains have special abilities. The side schemes have special abilities. The main schemes have special things happening. And now you add another thing that's a whole sort of separate game that's going on with these side missions. I didn't care for those much at all. And once now that I'm through the campaign, I'm probably never going to play these side missions again. I do not care for those ones. So yeah, it's going to get an 8 rating. A little bit lower than my other ones, but it's still 2 good heroes and 5 good scenarios, I would say. So yeah, 8 rating for Marvel Champions Age of Apocalypse. Going to the next one. The next one is a small little faction expansion to Summoner Wars 2nd Edition. This is the Forged faction deck. This is a new faction that has come out for Summoner Wars. Summoner Wars, one of my all-time favorite games, and the Forged, I think, is a really good deck of cards. I'm not going to get into it much, because if you don't know Summoner Wars, you're not really going to understand the abilities of this faction. But basically, all of the units in this one are structures, which is going to change the game pretty immensely. And Summoner Wars continues to impress me. This one's going to get a 9 rating. It's the same thing that I rate the base game of Summoner Wars. I think this one fits right in with all the other factions. It's fun ability. I love the puzzliness of Summoner Wars. And they just keep coming out with all these factions that feel very different, but still feel balanced in a good way. So yeah, 9 rating for the Forged faction deck for the Summoner Wars 2nd Edition. And going to our last game of the day, this is one that I finally got to the table, and it sat on my shelf for like 4 years, which is embarrassing. This is Concordia. This is an old classic Euro-style game that is in the top 25 on BGG, Board Game Geek, and it is simply a game where you are basically playing out these cards and doing whatever those cards are. Now, you're going to have a big board that you're going to be moving around people, establishing houses on different city areas, and it's just a really fun Euro-style game. If you like Euro-style games, and it's got the old Euro-style look to it as well, but there's a lot to think about on your turn. You're like trying to think like 2, 3, 4 turns in advance. You're like, I'm going to move here, then I'm going to build a house on there. Oh, but wait, I need these certain resources and this much coins to do that, so I'm going to have to play this first, and then I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to build those houses, and then I'm going to try and collect the resources from those areas later on. And I had a really good time playing this one. I've played this one 3 times now, and it's definitely staying in my collection. Like I said, this sat on my shelf for probably 4 years. Unplayed. This one's going to get a 9 rating, and I'm really disappointed in myself because it's a pretty simple game, actually. I would say it's a lighter to medium weight game, like a light medium weight game. And you read it, and it's probably 3 pages in it, but it's got a lot of depth in the decisions. You got a lot to think about on your turn. How are you going to accomplish the goals that you're trying to accomplish? The scoring is very unique, and you have to be knowledgeable of what scoring cards do you have in your hand, because you're going to score a ton of different scoring ways, but how are you going to maximize your scoring options for this game? So yeah, a 9 rating for Concordia. Absolutely loved it. I want to continue to bring it to the table and have a great time playing it. So yeah, that will be all of the games that we're going to be reviewing today. Make sure to comment down below some of your thoughts on some of these games, these expansions. I also did play another expansion that I should probably mention. It's the Sea Salt and Paper little tiny expansion. I didn't want to include it in here just because it's like a few different cards. If you like Sea Salt and Paper, go out and get that expansion. It's only like a couple dollars, but it adds just a little bit more to an already great little card game. But yeah, anyways, if you did enjoy this video, make sure to like and subscribe to see more weekly content from me, Shane, at the board meeting in the future. Hope you all have an amazing day. Take care.